Hey, this is my non-objective opinion. This is Tim on People's Radio United. Today we have a guest, AnonyTrace, and she's taking over the show music today. So first track we're gonna play to bring us in is Midnight Anon by AnonyTrace.
Expect us. Operation ISIS. Operation Suicide. Operation Awake the Masses. Operation Pride. Expect us.
Okay, that was Midnight Anon by DJ AnonyTrace, from radio.uanon.com. We're going to start broadcasting your shows live. I mean, not live. We're going to start broadcasting your shows on People's Radio as well. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. Been busy putting a load of propaganda together today. In a way, my life story. But at the same time, after what's been going on, and I think you've listened to some of it now, I'm starting a campaign now, and I'm going to out every single person that's discriminated and victimized against me. So today I've spent most of my day doing getting all the telephone recordings out, getting every single consultation recording out, and actually putting them into some context and into speech and releasing them on the cloud. So I've been busy.
Yeah, we're going to go into more details on all of that later for the audience, because I don't think they know what's going on yet. But first of all, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and also your show, because we're going to start airing your show. So let the people know kind of what your show is about. You know, you can keep it brief if you want, or go into more detail. It's up to you.
Well, me, I'm this cute little girl now. Sorry. I'm trans, fighting for my right to exist in this world in so many ways. And like I was saying to you earlier, it's probably because of my suffering, extreme sufferings over the past 4 years or so. I started recognizing so many other people suffering, and I think until you've been there, you don't actually see it that well. And so when I had the opportunity to start DJing on the radios, I realized that I wanted to try and make a difference for other people suffering and concentrate on the effects of atrocities on a personal basis, rather than just moaning about all of the agencies all of the time. So I concentrate, I look at everything in life, but I tend to sort of like look at the effects of which has more impact, rather than just talking about Donald Trump or Obama or Clinton or whatever, if you see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I do. I love your show. I've heard, like, I just recently started listening to him thanks to Seven, who's a guest on our show sometimes. And that was the first show I heard, was the Op Stop Suicide with Danny and Seven. And it was just really an awesome, really touching show, and it was amazing. You're an awesome host. I wish I had your skills.
No, I'm boring. I got talking to Seven ages ago, and I kept on saying, look, let's do a show. Because they do put a lot of effort in on OpStop, and now I'm part of, I think I'm part of OpStop Suicide. I seem to be dealing with enough people now, but, you know, when I realised to the extent that they go, and especially the likes of people like Danny, who's dedicated a lot of their time just trawling through the internet, looking for people that are perhaps in a position where they don't want to live anymore, and actually getting to them before they've made any form of decision and talking them out of things. I realised that, you know, I had a responsibility to try and get the word out to Anonymous and to anyone that listens to my shows, and also at the same time to tell people out there that we're not pot smoking or weed smoking drum and bass freaks. We're actually humanitarians. You know, we stand up for equality and human rights in this world. So yeah. I think that's what got me going on all of this. So it was probably Seven. And also, I remember, I think one of my first shows, I don't know if you've listened to it, was with a punk rock singer out of The Jewel. It's an up-and-coming punk rock group.
No, I haven't heard of them all yet. I'm starting to go through them.
Oh, my God. Well, I'll give you a funny picture, because I was actually laying down on the sofa with her for that interview. We were absolutely pissed by the end of the show, because
that's awesome.
She was just getting bottles of wine out. And, yeah, it was an amazing time. She was an amazing person. I've had the privilege to go out to some of her gigs and go to some of her shoots and meet loads of different people. So hopefully soon we're going to have Have you ever heard of the Ruts?
No.
Do you remember a song called Babylon's Burning? And I'm not. Don't ask me to sing it.
The old song, really old.
Yeah, Babylon's Burning. Do you
Yes.
remember that?
Yes.
Well, that's the Ruts.
Oh, okay.
I'm hopefully waiting for one of the band was in hospital having an operation, so we're waiting for him to recover. But we're going to have an interview and live acoustic session, which would be so cool. But so I try and get a fair balance of things on. So sometimes there'll be groups. I've got another one called, if you want to look on YouTube, another one's just been signed up to a label called Bella Locker, and some of her material's awesome. So she'll be coming on the show soon to be doing an interview and acoustic session also. And I've got some other groups coming on. It's amazing. As soon as you've got a few people on, other people come out the woodwork. It's quite flattering. Sometimes I'm talking to so many groups you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I think that's the music on your show is awesome. Even your DJ work, I really like it. It's really transy kind of.
Oh, that techno one that was about 17 minutes long. Yeah, that was awesome. And
we're going to play that at the end of today's show.
Yeah, I use it a lot for messages because there's a lot of breaks in there that I can actually use. I've developed my own bot voices now, so I end up putting sort of political messages and various other things on there and thanking people in the breaks and stuff. So it's quite a versatile track. But yeah, so there's a lot of up and coming stuff. I've been out of it in a lot of ways over the past year on and off. Due to illness, due to my fights, due to being my legal fights. I don't fight people except legally, and for my existence. But yeah, I've had operations. I've been arrested 11 times, and this, that, and everything else. So doing the shows as well, sometimes it's quite a challenge, but we get there. The Matt DeHart show was another one that I think. If people get the opportunity to, they're able to listen to, because it's a sign of things to come, and it's a sign of how our agencies have now gone so paranoid and delusional. They're now looking on society, each and every one of us, as criminals, and sooner or later now everyone's starting to, now these agencies, and now there's all these software packages out there that we don't know that's on our computers, copying our keystrokes, looking at our eye movements. Sooner or later there'll be a complete dossier on each and every one of us on our behavioral patterns, and then one day you'll give up smoking, or you'll change your life for the best, and so your behavioral patterns change, and all of a sudden you'll be flagged up at GCHQ as being a terrorist or a suspect in something. So yeah, it's worth listening to. It was an eye-opener talking to Leanne and Paul DeHart as well, and also the Free Anon solicitor, Nancy, and Sue. Have you ever spoken to Free Anons?
No, I haven't.
She does an amazing job. She's so dedicated to the operation, if you can call it an operation. But she deals with families of all the imprisoned anonymous, and also tries to help out legally. And she's almost doing that 24/7 now, which is quite admirable in so many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, you gave us both of those shows, that and the Op Stop Suicide. We're going to release them on People's Radio this week for the people to hear. And until then, or even after then, they can go to radio.uanon.com and find them. Am I correct?
Well, the best thing to do is I'll give you the links if you want to pop them up. But at the moment, they're all on my cloud. If you want to search for them on Google, if you type in DJ AnonyTrace and then type in afterwards archive.org, you'll go onto the archive.org site, or just go in archive.org and then go into the search panel and type in DJ AnonyTrace. And there's a lot of material up there. There's about 4 or 5 shows up there now. And there's some of my mixes.
And People's Radio is we're gonna have a link on our website to that as well, so everybody will be able to get your archive with no problem.
Cool. And if they want to download anything, they can download it on MP3. But the I think it's £75 per record, per track that I've mixed. That was a joke, by the way. So I'm too literal sometimes, aren't I?
See, I'm in the U.S., and when you said 75 pounds, it didn't register as a currency to me right away. So I was just thinking, like, is that some cool UK DJ term?
We work in kilos over here, so don't start thinking I'm actually, if I was 75 pounds, I'd be well underweight, wouldn't I? Yeah, so if anyone wants to download anything from there, they're welcome. You're also welcome to leave comments, but nice comments, please. No shitty stuff, and no F words, no swearing, nothing to do with weed, pot, cannabis, or anything. Now I've said that.
Well, I can't comment then, I guess.
No. What I meant is just keep it clean on the comments, please.
No, the weed thing got me.
Oh, I haven't done that for years. I've forgotten what it was like. But,
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. Let's get into. I'm so happy you've agreed to let us post your shows on People's Radio. Welcome to the family.
Well, thank you. But look, I think we're, like you say, welcome to the family. We are all family, and the shows are there for anyone. And if you want to listen to those shows, if I may ask, that when you listen to those shows, please send a link to those shows to other people, because the purpose of those shows are to awake the masses to all the atrocities that are going on in this world. And until we actually make people aware of what's going on, nothing will ever change. And just out of two shows, being the Op Stop Suicide and Free Matt to Heart and Laurie Love and everyone else, you know, the more, if you could send those links out to every single one of your contacts and they listen to those shows, then they'd be aware of the bad situations that are going around. So perhaps we'll be helping ourselves, you know. We've got an instrument there to actually circulate. So I should be thanking you for putting my material up, not you thanking me.
Oh, well, we'll thank each other, I guess.
Let's not get mushy now.
But yeah, I say it all the time.
I love you.
I love you too, Tracy. I say it all the time that you know, even for our listeners who can afford to support financially, because we're People's Radio and we got to keep paying the fees we pay for things online. The most important way to support is to share our shows, download our shows, send them to friends, and it's the same, because the message is the most important thing.
Exactly.
And your show is awesome. I'm so happy to have you with us over here now, and let's get into what we were here to talk about, which is
my sexy body.
Yeah. Well, no, we were going to start off talking about discrimination against transgender people briefly, because I mean, talking to you earlier, there's a lot of things I didn't know, and you know, you were explaining the difference between gender and sexuality, and I didn't understand that at first. So maybe maybe.
Do you know, I've just thought of something.
What?
Now, I gave you some pictures, and I said to you that the reason why I give people pictures when I'm talking to them like this, because it confuses them a little bit, and also at the same time, you know who you're talking to. Sometimes when you see my pictures, it surprises people when they realize who I am. Because, yes, I've got a deep voice, and I don't want to change this. It's not that I want a deep voice, it's just that I'm true to myself. And I think I'd sound really false, and I'd probably sound like a Mystic Meg or something if I tried training my voice. So this is who I am, take it or leave it. And so my point was, before we get on to discrimination, is that, you see, Tim, if you were listening to me and you didn't know who I was, then your thoughts would prejudice who I am in so many ways, wouldn't they?
it wouldn't prejudice me, but I would assume you look different than what your picture looked like. Definitely.
That's what I'm on about. So
Yeah.
you would probably start thinking, oh my God, this person's a man in a dress or something. You'd respect that, and you've been very respectful so far, but you'd probably get an image of this person that's trans that looks like a man that's a
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah. If I saw your
Um,
pictures, it'd just be some woman. I mean, yeah, I would never.
yeah, it's confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So from that point of view, you can see where prejudice and discrimination can come from, because things don't fit into place quite so well when it comes to a trans person than to someone that's actually been born into that gender and living in that gender. So I just thought I'd bring that in because it was a spur of the moment thought, and it's a good way of actually demonstrating how discrimination can start.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but that's true. If I didn't see the picture, I would have had a totally different mental image of what I thought you looked like.
Yeah. So when you're coming over tomorrow to take me out to dinner now, are you?
Yeah, I'm getting in my helicopter.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, maybe before we go in, because we have a lot to go over with what you're actually going through right now. But before we get into that, maybe just kind of to educate some of the people that are ignorant, like I am still, and was even more before I started talking to you about the whole, the whole transgender kind of thing. The discrimination you guys go through is horrible, and just kind
Yes,
of
there is a lot.
yeah, and just just kind of briefly go through what you were talking to me about before, because I think a lot of people don't know that if they don't have relatives, if they're not a trans person themselves, they don't know anybody. Most people don't have a clue. Some of the stuff you were telling me was just really informative.
Well, I think discrimination, for a start, we covered some points that were really relevant. Perhaps the fault of the community. I mean, the LGBT community, not mainstream community. Because obviously, although transgender has been around since the beginning of man, it's only just starting to become recognised, because let's face it, it's only in the past, say, 50 to 100 years that we've had medical industries, that we've started successfully operating on people, recognising conditions, diseases and everything else. And so in a way, although transgender people have been around since the beginning of time, realistically, in reality, in society, it's still a relatively new thing. We just come out of, say, for instance, a severely homophobic stage. Before that, it was a racial stage. It all has a similarity to each other, and it's sort of like a xenophobic thing in a way, isn't it? Because it's a non-conforming thing to what we're used to. So, of course, when we look at these things, it's like trying a new food. You're apprehensive about trying it at first, and a lot of people prejudice that food as they don't like it and go through all their lives not having that food until a couple of weeks before they die, and then they say, oh, this is really nice. The same thing with, say, for instance, LGBT community and also, say, trans people. Until you actually get to know them, you'll always be prejudiced in so many ways. But I think in a way also the LGBT community don't really help, especially in the trans community. You can probably tell I'm not sort of like I'm not associated with the trans community. I transitioned for a reason, and that's because I couldn't cope any longer. I was a successful man. I had a building company, and but my depressions, my anxieties, in a way, my dysphoria was getting so strong it was just unbearable, and I had to do something about it. So eventually I split up with my girlfriend and also left my daughter behind because I didn't want her discriminated against to start a transition. I realised that I had to do something about it. But I also realised that there's a lot of give and take in the world, and there's a lot of compromise. So I realised I have to compromise one hell of a lot to have a social life. Not so much now, but this is where I think in a way the communities the trans community doesn't want to compromise. It loves ramming things down people's throats like toilets, you know. It wasn't a big deal. It doesn't matter which toilets you go in anyway, but, you know, the amount of coverage that things get become distasteful for people. And I think that's where discrimination comes in. For me, you know, I've never had trouble in loos. I've never had trouble in shops. I've always been happy about who I am. I don't have to sit there complaining about things. I just get on with my life. And I think that way you actually fit in. But I do know the United States are a little bit behind, say, in the UK when it comes to acceptance in these things. I've read a lot about what goes on over there in some states. And in some states, they're still very homophobic, aren't they?
It's really, really bad. But the thing I don't understand is I could understand not understanding or being ignorant about the situation, but what I don't understand is the sheer hatred they have for gay people and trans people. Like, where does it, I mean, how does it even affect you if you're not, you know, in some kind of relationship, whether it be family or whatever, you know what I mean? None of this affects you.
What I do is I've got this attitude, and I think that's what helps me through life, is that everyone has a right to their own feelings. And I don't have a right to tell someone that they should like me. If they don't like me, so what? As long as they don't cause me any trouble, they can hate me as much as they want. We all have a right to our feelings and emotions. And I think more hatred is caused when people actually start fighting this and trying to dictate to those, rather than slowly blending into the community and getting on with their lives. I think in a way, again, you know, that sort of hatred is actually caused by too much media, too much this, too many campaigns running, too many protests, too much of this, too much of that. You know, I go into some of the most dangerous places in Britain. I never have any troubles. You know, I can walk down a high street, and my old high street, everyone would be saying hello to me every morning and every evening or whatever. The train going into London when I commute was my social club. I'm not outrageous. I'm just down to earth. And in fact, one day I was having an argument with the police force on my Android, so I put it onto speakers. And I was really taking a piss out of this police officer. And the police officer kept on asking what all that laughing was in the background. So I said, look, that's the train. I've got you on loudspeaker and it's rush hour and everyone's listening to this telephone conversation. And everyone was pissing themselves laughing. And when I finished the call, I got this round of applause and cheering and whistling and stuff. And every time the train came up to a station, people were getting off, but they were making an effort to come past me and wish me luck with these police officers. Everyone was telling me not to take any shit from them, go for it, and the rest of it. Literally, the whole train came past and wished me good luck on the way home.
Everyone hates the police.
Yeah, I know. Everyone does. Let's face it, they're not the police now. They're the corporation. But all I'm saying is sometimes a little bit of compromise and remembering what you say, for instance, for a trans person, remembering what you actually transitioned for in the first place. And that's to actually just get on with life. Because for me, I got to a point where it was unworkable, you know, the amount of stress, because I knew, let's face it, that old cliche about I knew I was in the wrong body. I just knew I was the wrong sex and I had to do something about it. You know, I'd lived 40 odd years as a man. I tried and I tried and I tried living with what God had given me, and it just wouldn't work any longer. So I had to do something about it. And I became very modest in so many ways, but also very cheeky and very happy with who I was. And I think in a way, because it's like a lot of people used to say to me, Tracy, you own yourself. And a friend of mine once said to me in this high street, and I was saying, no one ever looks at me. And he's saying, yeah, you've got direction. He says, you know, there's purpose in everything that you do, so you don't stick out like a sore thumb. You know, you're totally inconspicuous because you're just acting naturally, going about your business. And I think this is where a lot of people, they never transition. They never actually give themselves time to settle in with what they need to be. and a lot of people transition for the wrong reasons, and so they end up sticking out like a Belisha beacon in society, and that's when you start getting trouble. So yeah, but I think in a way, society, okay. In the United States, society is still relatively draconian in lots of ways in a lot of areas. Okay, LA and around your way, there's not so much trouble. But I think society in general are very good. There's not one country I've been to where I've had any trouble. So I would say that most of the trouble now is caused by government and officials and public services more than anything else. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So most people probably just don't see you as trans, I would assume. Like when you're going down the street, they're just, there's a man, there's a woman, there's a woman, there's a woman, there's a woman, and you're just one of the women walking by.
Yeah. Well, let's get over a first misconception. Being a trans woman, you don't transition to wear a dress or wear a skirt. You're doing it for a reason. It's because your brain is female and it's desperate to see the female form. And okay, that also relates to clothing because the brain's conditioned. We're all conditioned to wear that particular item, When you were born, you were in blue, and, if you had a sister, she'd be in pink, so to speak. So, yes, there is a lot of conditioning, and, you're not going to start, mind you, I wouldn't be able to fit into men's gear now, but the thing is, it's cross-dressing and transgender are two different things. One's almost a fetish, and one, people like me are putting something that's wrong right. But yeah, I was coming home from the Strand. I'd been in meetings with barristers all afternoon, and I'd really dressed up smart for the occasion. And so I finished the meetings, and I got back to Charing Cross, jumped on a train, and got home, closed the door, and it suddenly dawned on me, not one person had looked at me. No one had stared at me. And it suddenly dawned on me that I was no longer recognizable in any male form whatsoever. And it was so nice to actually have got to that stage to achieve that. And I felt so normal. But then, afterwards I felt so pissed off as well, Tim. Because all of a sudden I realised no one's looking at me anymore. You start thinking, what the fuck's wrong with you? Why isn't anyone looking at me? So then I realised that's the female side coming out of me. But it was nice because I think I told you I was in my car one day and in a traffic jam, and I was so fucking bored, and I was looking in the mirror and at myself, just saying, isn't there anything more to life than being bored? And then all of a sudden I felt so happy, and I realised that I'd actually been sitting there totally bored with nothing on my mind. Whereas before I transitioned, if I'd have been in that situation, I'd be so depressed looking at myself thinking, when are you going to transition? And be so down, depressed that I was still stuck in this body, in this life. So, it's good. It doesn't matter how much I've been through. I would never be able to change this for the world. It doesn't matter how nasty people are to me. I could never change this. This is who I am. And the way I am, take it or leave it. But at the same time, I respect people in the same light. So I don't ram anything down people's throats except for government, politicians, police officers, and the medical profession. Society, they're warm, welcoming, and supportive to me over here. So, yeah, it's good.
Cool. Well, now we got to get into some of the bad things, I guess.
The bad things? Oh, my God.
The police and the medical harassment and stuff that's been going on with you. I'm going to play this in you want to set up? I'm going to play this message to the Hertfordshire police. You want to set it up before I play it?
Yeah, well, what's been going on over the past, so before we get into it, but I started actually because I had to move areas. I've come to live with a friend for a while whilst we're sorting out all the shit that's going on. And anyway, something else developed, so I had to call the police. And eventually I was having to call them, sort of pushing and pushing and pushing. They came down and arrested me. And they're trying to prosecute me for harassment. But eventually I got talking to a DC within Hertfordshire Police, and she started recognising that, well, hang on a second, but there's a big issue here. I was lucky enough because she has a brother that's a trans brother. In other words, it used to be her sister and she's transitioned to male. And so she appreciates exactly what's going on. So she recognised a lot. So she's supposed to be getting back onto me on Wednesday. But then I realised, because this has been going on for 4 years now, that I would perhaps write her something. So when she got back Wednesday, she'd be able to read about how I feel and everything else, you see. So then I thought, sod it, let's put it into a voice. And because I could demonstrate with a bot voice, because it's quite a sad statement to make, what I've written there. But I can demonstrate. I thought I'd demonstrate to them that they'll be able to listen to this recording, but they have trouble listening to me. And the only difference is I've taken the human element out of the scenario by putting it into a bot voice. So it's a very interesting thing to do. But yes, it's. I decided to put down sort of like a brief resume, which then got me onto a lot of other things, because I realised the best thing to do now is to bring everything out into the open, because yes, my fights are getting very serious. So I decided the best thing to do is release everything into the public domain. This is why I'm doing different episodes now. So episode 2 is already out. We're not going to play that today because that's over, I think it's about 55 minutes long.
Yeah, we can release them as well. If you send them to us, we'll release them on your station channel.
Yeah, sure. Well, episode 3 is going to be outing the doctors that abuse me, and then episode 4 is going to be all of the officers, all of the recordings I have and everything, and then the last one, the grand finale, is I'm going to out all of the politicians that caused me so many troubles. So yeah, it's interesting. So this is sort of like the lead into some future shows as well.
Yeah, and it's really, when I listened to it, it was really disturbing. But that you did have it mentioned about the voice, and I didn't understand what that meant until you just brought that up now. Like, if I had talked to you without seeing you, I would have had a totally different thought of what you might look like. And I guess that's kind of why you use the voice, and you bring that up in here as well, somewhere toward the end, I think.
Yeah, well, the reason I pointed it out, and I've talked about this, is because someone like me in public services can get so prejudiced. It's untrue. And yes, my voice is low, so fucking what? But it's imperative on the person on the other end of the phone doesn't discriminate against. You can have a severe medical condition, but if someone's not taking you seriously, then you could be dead. Likewise, if you're dealing with the police and someone doesn't want to deal with you because what they think that's on the other end of the phone is this man in a dress, or a cross-dresser or whatever, you can say that some of it's natural. But the problem is, in these scenarios, it's different, because these are services, and services are there not to actually discriminate against anyone. Services are there to treat each and every human being. But sadly, we still have the human element in these services, which is the downfall. So, yes, I wanted to make a point, and I wanted to make a point that they were actually persecuting me for being human in so many ways. So, yeah, it's a nice sort of opener into the series that I'm going to do on the amount of abuse and how many times I've almost died and how it came about and everything else. So it's a good lead in.
it's a horrific story. I mean, it's horrible what you've been through. I mean, I understand the police, because police are generally evil the world round, and they're dicks and they're racist and they're bigots. But the people in the medical profession is what shocked me, because those people should be there to help people. Like I told you earlier, even on a human level, you know, that's what they're there for. That's what you would think they'd go, especially in your country. Maybe not even so much here. It'd be more for money and monetary gain, but it just shocks me when you tell me the medical people are, you know, and to hear how they discriminated against you as well.
Well, it's just like when I asked you if you remembered what you were doing Christmas night 2012.
Yeah.
And then I told you what I was doing. Wow. And I was laying in the middle of a construction site in a pressed steel bath, in the dark, in the cold, with my lungs filling up with water or fluids, in absolute chronic pain, barely being able to breathe. I'd got a pulmonary embolism, and I actually got my computer out because I was wondering why the fuck no one wanted to help me and why I was being left to die. I was being told to go away and stop causing trouble for nice people. So, yeah, it was a bad time. But also it was a time when I found myself as well. And they do say in life that you can't start living until you've actually faced death in the face. Well, I think that was my time I met with death. And so, yeah, let's lead in with this and then we'll discuss it afterwards, shall we?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and play it right now. It's about 18 minutes long, so we're going to let it roll, and then when we come back, we'll talk about it, okay?
Cool.
Dear Kim, I am writing to you in this format, for a reason. Perhaps then you will realize that at present the police are in fact prosecuting my protected characteristics, rather than Tracy herself. But more of that later. There are some very serious issues that need to be addressed, some involving police officers who have made serious threat, and left me in this condition. It was a while back now, in fact I cannot remember the dates, and the more serious it gets for me now, the more I don't even want to look at these documents. But what I can say, which if your national records are set up correctly, you will see an incident put on by a PC Lee South. Lee South wrote me a statement, which I have on my computer, and also, like all information after what has happened and what is going on, stored where the police will never be able to gain access, unless I allow them. So you see, taking my computer away, accessing my records within my computer, was a total breach, as the computer wasn't ever used in such allegation of harassment. Something else that will have to be addressed. It's just a shame that you took the wrong laptop. The other now, you will never get your hands on. It does not contain information that could incriminate me, but contains information that will incriminate those who abused me, namely police officers. Recordings through to communications which only prove I was being abused. The trouble we face is that the can needs to be opened. We are at a junction, one that can only determine my life, my mortality, my future, and one if handled incorrectly, will result unfortunately, in my death. It cannot be determined in any other way, but to date Hartford police have denied my human rights. Denied help in every respect. In fact, officers lie, stating they offered safeguarding, whereas, safeguarding is not something that should be offered, but automatic, when a vulnerable person is identified, indicating that your officers knew I was in trouble and walked away to leave me to suffer serious injuries. In fact, safeguarding a vulnerable adult, if recognized, which offering would in fact demonstrate, also demonstrates your officer's intent to leave me suffering. A friend of mine, Patrick, helped me as much as possible early this year. In fact, I met with him this week, and he accidentally reminded me of the condition I was in, being starved to death, and being abused, In fact, if you need to speak with Patrick, he is ex-Ministry of Justice. I am sure he will fill you in, from the point in January, when I had a meeting with mental health, who were not even concerned that I was seriously ill when they came to my apartment. In fact, on the 1st of January, I walked a friend who had stayed with me for New Year's Eve, back to the station. I overheated and felt so ill, no strength. I took the bus back home, taking my clothes off and getting straight into bed. I remained unconscious for 3 days. On the 4th of January, woke up to Patrick ringing the doorbell, banging on the door. The shock on his face when he looked at me said it all. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. In fact, if I had taken the advice of the ambulance crew that night, taking an aspirin and sleeping it off, I would be dead now, but again, this is another story. There are also other incidents, one involving my local authority, who committed criminal offenses against me. While I was in planning application, a notice was sent to them under public sector duty. Obviously my status can cause issues in anything, as who wants a man in a dress, living next door to them. My local authority then started asking the architects not to allow me into their offices, and in fact at one point, told my clients, if I wasn't running the contract, they would get planning permission. My contract with my client meant that I would have a 1-bedroom apartment when I finished building the block of 10 apartments. I would have a home, without mortgage, a wonderful start to a wonderful new future. That afternoon I was invited to Canary Wharf, where I was threatened and attacked by the client. When I got back home, they had also broken in without warrant, and then used the police after I had entered back into my home. I was subsequently attacked, but more perversely. 4 officers attended the property I was living in, threatened me with taser and arrest if I didn't leave the property. Although there was information indicating I had a right to be there, I was taken out of my home, placed in a police van, and driven away from my hometown, dumped in a hotel. The architect, also in ways a friend, after I reported the crimes to the police, was contacted by an officer and threatened, "We very rarely speak now," as he is petrified that one day, the call from my mobile will be another person phoning all my contacts, to tell those people I am dead. Now he lives in fear for me. He does not able to speak to me much. In fact, when we do speak, you can hear the strain in his voice. He is quite upset, and worried, but also scared for himself. He knows how spiteful the local authority is that caused all of this trouble, as he used to work there, knowing exactly what they used to get up to. In fact, same local authority, I have allegations against a person in social services for aiding and abetting suicide, yet it goes uninvestigated. In fact, same authority left me lying in my own bodily waste, claiming I was lying about my injuries, telling me to go get a job like normal people do, rather than helping, rather than safeguarding from all the abuse that I was suffering. In broad terms, after my section, this local authority refused to attend a multi-agency meeting, in fact, had unlawfully evicted me from my property, as they removed my belongings without court warrant, changed the locks, while they had me secured in a mental hospital under a Section 2 without even a proper assessment, which the courts picked up on. In fact, the hospital couldn't release me until I had somewhere to go. Soon this authority was forced to provide another place to live, but refused me help in any form, or safeguarding to ensure professional help. There are key people that would help to make case. These people, if a force was willing under safeguarding, to fully investigate what has been going on, independently from any other force, the investigation would soon determine some very serious issues, surrounding disability hate, to aiding and abetting suicide, and major contraventions under human rights, Articles 1, 2, 3 and 8. I was left to die on more than one occasion. Again, the NHS knew what they were doing. In fact, there is a doctor who I will not identify, who confirmed that there were people purposely causing these issues, as I have upset them. The fact I had not upset them, but they didn't like my protected characteristics, did not like the distress and anxiety I was left suffering from the abuse. One day I was very shocked at what happened to me. A black Peugeot 205 was parked across my site access, so I asked the person to move it and park elsewhere. This person, a woman, a nurse. When she refused, I had no option but to tell her I would remove it if she didn't. She then exploded, threatening me that if I touched her car, she would bring her family down to my site, and where I lived, they would drag me out, cut my penis off, and make sure it was impossible to wear trousers again. I actually took a photo of her car and reported this, but again it was not investigated. In fact, there was a lot going on, orchestrated by a few, I stated, getting not very nice people turning up to my site, making serious threats against me. In fact, we knew where it was coming from, yet the police refused to investigate. On one occasion, I was told they had spoken with the actual person, who claimed he had never been to Sidcup, but in fact I had given the police a photo of the man I took on my Android, which placed him in our car park, but according to the police, this wasn't sufficient evidence. Again, the police were refusing to protect. I can go on, there is so much I have been exposed to. Attacks are all public services related, apart from one attack. I was being beaten up by 4 youths, in their late teens. I had fought back, and managed to get to my car, and called the police on 999. Told the operator what was going on, and I needed help. In fact, she asked me what all the banging was, so I told her, they were attacking my car. The operator then offered me an appointment to see a police officer at a later date. She refused to send out a car to help me. It's strange, isn't it? But I have been able to tell you through other media what is happening to me, without getting upset. Well, that might not be so true. You hear a bot voice telling you, but the person behind this voice is crying, hurting so bad from severe abuse, just typing and producing such a message. My point to you, you can listen to this quite easily, but you cannot listen to the real person so easily, full of serious emotion. Perhaps my point is being made, that the police now prejudice people's emotions, classing them as offenses, rather than taking them as part of the process in being a severe victim of crime. Those very reactions and emotions caused by persistent abuse over 4 years. Have we now evolved humans within public services with intolerance to the effects of crime on another human being? Once this safeguarding is in place, I would also like Hertfordshire Police to investigate fully what has happened to me, as that is part and parcel of safeguarding. From this investigation will emerge some very serious offenses, by people who are in authority, people who considered I did not have a place in life, and really those people to the effects they left me to, actually didn't mind I died. The issue here is, that if a public servant who has obligation under public sector duty, knowingly leaves another to suffer such consequences, it can be determined, the person was using the effects I was suffering as an instrument, for the purpose of causing serious harm. This is how the law is structured now. I am asking for Hertford to listen to me, and accept this, and investigate. At present judges accept what I say extreme interest. I have been praised by judges on my presentation and structuring in such cases. Perhaps it's time to listen. Perhaps we will all learn something out of this. Perhaps one lesson I will then learn is that there are a few good people left in this bizarre and perverse climate we seem to live in at this point in time, an environment of paranoia and delusion, of the very bodies who are here in fact to support society, and not kill them off, one by one. Columbus once stated, "Nothing that results from human progress is achieved by unanimous consent, for those enlightened before the others are condemned to pursue that light in spite of the others." I have been forced to pursue my life for the last 4 years. My pursuance, bestowed upon me by a few others, who do not agree that I should have help, the few who feel I should not have protection under the law, and the seriously perverse few, who consider that I should be dead. My life should never have been placed into such extremes. Society itself was so supporting, warm and welcoming. In fact, even the train commuting into London and back became my social club in many ways. The effects and length of time I have been forced to suffer must be taken seriously, along with all my injuries, some still untreated, purposely left since 2012. In fact, at present, I am what you would call a ticking time bomb. The nature of one injury, being the leg injury, leaves me at high risk in suffering either a deep vein thrombosis or pulmonary embolus. It was determined after major surgery in January that the lesions within my stomach, caused by the extreme strain my body has been left to suffer for so long. I am in no fit state for any aggressive style policing, neither am in a fit state to be patronized nor insulted. I am afraid that after such a long period of time, left exposed to the most perverse torture, that has without a doubt affected me deeply. My life has been destroyed by a few that consider I do not have a right to life. Therefore I ask that investigations are made, but there is no prejudice or discrimination. In fact, if you have a question, I really do not mind people asking, as long as it does not relate to my penis, or any other stupid questions. The police have to take me and respect me as a human being. I have a name, it is Tracy, I am female. There never needs to be any question relating to what I prefer to be known as. I consider this as a huge insult, and direct attack on my gender, along with other questions the police seem to be trained in asking. I am not too sure if it is the transgender community itself that has caused this. I do know that the transgender community cannot make its mind up on what it wants, cannot make its mind up on how many sexes there should be, and this is why I do not associate myself with the mainstream community that is identified and worked with by the police. I would like you all to consider how you would address a woman who was identified as female from birth, and give me same respect in the way you communicate and address me. In 2005, ACPO gave directive that every member of the police force, both staff and officers, learn Gender Recognition Act, learn how to address people on the telephone that would not marginalize transgender from using these services, but in fact this has not happened. I do not know if I am asking you, or maybe warning you. It may be a little of both, the request, warning, a protective proactive advance in the prevention of any further abuse in respect to my gender by Hartford Police. I do think it is time that your organizations learn that regardless of sex, all humans have the same requirements, but in slightly different ways. The answers for the solution is staring you in the face, but Hertfordshire Police cannot see the wood for the trees. I would just like to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you Kim, for letting me blow. There will be a lot more, before I can relax, before I can sleep, before I can grasp life again. I only hope now yourselves realize the severity in what I have been forced to suffer, that you now listen. If you feel sad for me, while listening to this, why do you not feel sad, when you hear me in person, as the only difference? I have filtered out the human element in this transmission, the very human element you are trying to persecute.
Okay, we're back. That's That's DJ AnonyTrace sending a message to the Hertfordshire Police, and she's our guest on the show today. So yeah, you wanna go into further detail about why you're having to release these and what's going on?
Yeah, in a way, I think we need to start at the beginning. It's just that it's like everyone. It's amazing now. Everyone says, "Blimey, this is complex," and I say, "Well, it's only complex because you've allowed it to get so out of hand." And then a group of barristers I used to drink with, they found the whole situation funny, and I used to say, "Andy, stop laughing," and they'd say, "Well, Tracy, you've got to see the funny side of this. It's for us, it's hilarious." And I say, "Well, what's funny about it?" And they say, "Well, you've backed the whole entire Metropolitan Police into a corner, and they don't know how to react, so they're coming out fighting." And so in that perspective, yeah, you can see the funny side of it. That one trans woman on her own has backed all of these people into a corner in law. And so what they do, they come out fighting, trying to make you look like a bad person. So much so, last year, we didn't discuss this, you're going to fall off your chair in a second. Last September, I was in criminal court being prosecuted for conspiring to murder a police officer. Which they'd actually been spying on my Facebook, and they were actually spying on DMs without a warrant for a start. But they took a joke I said to a friend in private out of context and tried prosecuting me for conspiring to murder a police officer. I represented myself in court. Of the morning of the trial, they actually tried bringing more information in. It was actually alleged that I was on the way to a police station to behead a police officer. So everyone just told me to be myself and just take the piss out of the whole situation. The charge that they had me on under the malicious communications, there was no malicious communication there. So I took my hairbrush out my handbag, held it up, and I said, "This, Your Honour, is the murder weapon that I was walking down to Belgravia station with to behead a police officer with." And he laughed. He thought it was funny because I was holding my hairbrush up. And so anyway, in return, it turned into a comedy set more than anything, because in return he started cracking David Cameron jokes. Do you remember when David Cameron had been found out for shagging a pig's head?
Yeah.
So he started telling these David Cameron jokes. So obviously the Crown prosecution, which is a prosecutor for the Queen, they were looking a bit bemused. So he said these jokes aimed at me. So I said about this pig's head. So I said, "I don't know about that, Your Honour, but what I do know is the CPS have made a pig's ear out of this case." And he starts laughing more. And he asked me one question. He said, "Tracy, what did you mean by lol?" And I said, "How do you mean, Your Honour?" And he says, "Well, did you mean lots of love, or did you mean laugh out loud, as in a joke?" And I said, "Well, it was laugh out loud." He says, "Fine, case dismissed. That was it. End of." And the CPS, she was spitting so many feathers you wouldn't believe it. But that's how serious it gets for someone like me. In fact, I was about 6 months previous, I was actually, when I was arrested, I wasn't treated very well, and then I was left in the police cell to die. And on purpose, I had a suspected DVT, which I should have been in hospital for because I'd suffered pulmonary embolisms before due to the amount of abuse. But instead, what they wanted to do is leave me in the cell without any form of medical treatment, which in law, if you look at it, they left me to the effects of potentially fatal consequence. So you could quite easily, under quality law, because the quality law says the purpose or the effects of, they left me to the effects of death, which would be attempted murder. So I've got complaints in against various officers for attempted murder, for this, that, and everything else, but the police don't want to investigate them properly. So even that on its own, that sounds quite big. Sorry. That sounds quite big on its own. That's just not even a tip of the iceberg. In a way, I suppose, if I was on the ISS looking down at the planet, that case would be a human being. And I'd need a set of binoculars or a big powerful telescope to see that human being on the planet in comparison to my troubles. But it all started in the 19th of October 2009. 2012. I was actually living on my yacht. I have a 46-foot yacht, and I came home that night to find that it had been stolen. And there were some people actually extorting me for money. And so I paid them the money that they were after to start off with, because I didn't want any trouble. And I just thought, let's just get this sorted and then I'll be off. Well, I paid them the money, then they refused to give me my boat back. So I had to go to the police, and it got out of hand. Well, I sustained leg injuries, and also I became homeless because I couldn't get a home at the time. I was relatively skinned. I just started off life again, and I was building things back up. So I ended up living on my construction site whilst trying to get my home back, with the police force telling me to stop causing trouble for nice people. And I got so much abuse from officers because of my gender, as being classed, as being accused of being homosexual, this, that, and everything else. And so it turned into one big fight. But the trouble is, the leg injuries developed, and Christmas 2012, my doctors weren't taking me seriously either. I developed my first pulmonary embolism, and I've been down to casualty, and they gave me an inhaler. Well, I should have been in intensive care, but instead I had a Ventolin bottle and sent home. So I laid in a press-steel bath in the middle of this construction site with my lungs filling up with fluid. I was getting so congested. I was in absolute agony, and I could barely breathe. And so it was time to start considering that I was going to die. And so that's what it was like, really. And but I think there's something that saved me that night, Tim, in so many ways. Because it suddenly dawned on me, because I hadn't completed transition, it was just revolting considering that I was going to die and I wasn't even complete. And it was, first of all, so upsetting. I was crying my eyes out, not knowing what to do. But I felt this strength from within. It's very difficult to explain. But I realized I couldn't be like this. I couldn't die like this. And it suddenly dawned on me that I'd experienced the deepest love that I'd ever experienced in my life. It was that night I realized that I never, ever really knew what love was. And I realized I'd never had any self-respect in my life either. So for some odd reason, I don't know what it was. It wasn't one of those moments, those life-changing moments, but it's just a lot of things I realized that night, and somehow I got all of the strength to start fighting. So that's how it all started off. Basically, everyone just left me to die. And so my fight started in 2012, 19th, which was the day before my birthday. And it's been going on ever since. In fact, it's got so bad at sometimes, you just sit there and you think, is life really worth continuing? I've lost so many friends, and all trans friends, over 30 of them in the past 6 years. And it's when you get into this situation, you really admire those that have had the courage to commit suicide, because, those people are now not suffering any longer. They're at peace. They need rest. I need rest now, but I can't get it. I'm condemned to pursue my light in spite of the others. And it's a very hard time. But I ended up, eventually my doctors put me into a hospital. They had to do something, Oh, shit, Tracy's not dead. What the fuck are we going to do? Let's send her to hospital. So I ended up going to hospital, but then the clinicians decided I didn't actually have a leg injury. I had a hormone-related DVT, deep vein thrombosis, whereas I had a leg injury. And they put me onto some drugs, warfarin. Everyone knows what warfarin is. And I started reacting to the drugs. They put me on so much warfarin, it was obscene. and I started collapsing a lot and everything else. And but they started ignoring it, saying, well, I'm sorry, it's impossible. Take those drugs or die. And I got to a point where all of a sudden I was suffering another pulmonary embolism, but also at the same time, there's a possibility that I had internal bleeds to my liver and my kidneys as a reaction from the warfarin. And again, I didn't get any hospital treatment. I find out that with an internal bleed to liver and kidneys, you'll be in intensive care, or a normal person was. For me, I had to live my normal life, suffering all of these things and look after myself, because the more I complained about things, the more abuse I got back from the clinicians, which is absolutely perverse. But my doctor pulled me out of the Princess Royal University Hospital, which is the one that left me in that bad way, and put me over to another hospital called Queen Elizabeth. And we started getting the same trouble again. So I complained to the chief executive, thinking, that's a safe bet, isn't it? If you get hold of the chief executive, then at least they're going to smooth the waters over. But that wasn't the case. All of a sudden, I was being harassed by the chief executive, and they were committing offences against me. So I made some complaints, went and saw my MP, and he actually helped me to get the borough commander to accept that they must investigate. So they arrested the chief executive, interviewed him, and sent all of the investigation up to the CPS, which is a Crown Prosecution Service. But what I got as justice back from them was they decided the best thing to do was give me a telephone number of a gay advice line rather than prosecute. So at that point, I was left relatively without any medical treatment, with his psychic threatened me on the phone, telling me that if I persisted in trying to get proper treatment, they'd make sure I'd never get treated on the NHS again. That's how serious it can get for someone like me, because we can't have this obligatory man in a dress getting one over on us. Do you see where I'm coming from?
That's horrible. It's oh my God. I mean, I admire your courage and bravery fighting back and sticking with it. But
we're not even up to 2014 yet.
And you're still fighting.
This has now been going on. This is still going on. Well, I was then put into... what happened next? I got a letter from my doctor, and it was getting so severe. And my doctors tried getting me medical treatment, and they were phoning around various hospitals and stuff. And it was, bear with me a second, it was March 2014. They decided that they'd notify me in writing, and so I received this letter. And the letter reads as this. It says, Dear Miss Smith, since you've been registered with this practice, we've referred you for specialist assessment on more than one occasion. Most recently, this related to further assessment of your blood vessels in your leg. We contacted more than 6 NHS hospital trusts regarding their approach to transgender individuals. None have provided written confirmation that they complied with current legislation, and at least one informed us that they did not have current equality and diversity policy in place. Given this situation, there is an obvious problem with any investigation and management requiring specialist input. Well, about a month after that, my doctor struck me off of his list.
Wow.
And transferred me over to another doctor. So it gets worse from there. And it gets much worse. I'd already suffered 2 pulmonary embolisms. I'd had internal bleeds. But I started having... I was left in a really terrible way. And the next doctor, he started off really well. And then he decided that he was going to start making referrals to hospital for me as a man. And if you imagine, I there's people may laugh at that, but there's a sinister side to it. First of all, it's very degrading and highly illegal. But on the other hand, you see, I don't produce my own hormones anymore. And so I have endocrine treatments. In other words, I have hormone replacement therapy. And without the hormone replacement therapy, there can be lots of complications. So it's imperative that people are referred correctly, which you'll find out in a second. But anyway, I started developing heart problems, serious palpitations and chest pains, and started developing serious sort of like musculoskeletal pains in my neck, radiating down my arms, everywhere. And this doctor, he wouldn't even give me a painkiller, and he wouldn't even refer me for physiotherapy. So I was having to find my own physiotherapy, and because I wasn't working much, in the end I couldn't afford even my own physio. And so it got to a point where, because what was going on in my council, it seems like when victimization starts, because all of these services are linked together, it seems that you're shut out of everything. But eventually I got some emergency accommodation, and my doctor, the same doctor, was worried about me actually, but he wrote off to my local authority saying that he was very concerned because my cardiac status was deteriorating, and so was my musculoskeletal condition. But it was so blatant in there, and said because she can't afford any more medical treatment. Well, I should have been getting this on the NHS. But anyway, so the worst thing of all, at the bottom of his letter, he wrote that he could no longer treat me, and he passed me on to another doctor, which was highly illegal because he needed my consent to do that, but he transferred me across. Well, I was almost bedbound by that stage. I was in so much agony, and this doctor, Peter Oxford, he was refusing to take my calls for over a month, and eventually when he did ring me, I was in such a bad way, and I could barely stand up, and he was trying to give me an appointment to see him at his surgery, and I said, well, look, I'm sorry, but I don't think I can make it there. I'm in too much pain now. I've got a serious back problem. But his reply to that was, well, it's tough. If you want medical treatment, you're going to have to make it to me because I'm not prepared to come and see you. So anyway, I got on public transport because I couldn't drive. And I had to keep on getting off the bus, because I was suffering neurological effects. I had a massive spinal injury. I didn't know how bad it was. But I had to keep on getting off the bus, and it was all I could do was sit on the pavement and start throwing up again. But I eventually made it down to his surgery, and I was so concerned because I knew that a lot of these problems, because it was deteriorating, had some issue with my transgender drugs that I was on. Because you're on a blocker which blocks your production of testosterone, and then you're on hormones. Well, as soon as I insisted, he started looking at my trans medication. He asked me to leave his surgery. He refused to give me any pain management or any referrals for any of the problems I had. So it took me a couple of hours to get home. And isn't it amazing when you're in so much trouble and you're sitting on the street like that, and everyone's walking by? And I'm not saying because I'm trans with that, but I notice this a lot, that when someone's in trouble, everyone wants to walk by in this day and age, which is so sad. And when you're in that situation, you know what it feels like. But anyway, I got home, and I spent the next almost month, almost bedbound, and it got so bad. I got an ambulance, and I ended up going up to the local accident and emergency. Well, the first week they put me on painkillers and anti-inflammatories to see if they could get the swelling down, and told me to come back the following week if there was no change. But that's still deteriorating. And so I went back the following week, and they realised, and they said, look, how about if we try some physiotherapy? So they booked me into this physiotherapy in the hospital. And 2 days later, I was back there. Well, the physio, he'd done his examination, And he said, I was standing up against because I was losing my motor skills of my right leg, and my right foot had stopped working. And every time I'd pick my right leg up, my foot would drop, and so I could barely walk properly. And so anyway, he goes and he says, just stay where you are. I was leaning up against the couch, couch or whatever you want to call it. And he brought the consultant back, and they'd done this examination together. And the consultant said, look, Tracy, can you just keep standing where you are, please? And we'll be back in a second. And they came back with the spinal board, and they put me on the spinal board and then said, look, Tracy, you're showing symptoms that you've broken your spine. And,
oh, my God.
So we're taking you back down to accident and emergency. So back down to accident and emergency. You know, where's my fucking doctor? And so anyway, they'd done a CAT scan and discovered that I had a collapsed cervical spine, which would account for all the neurological problems I had also. And I had multiple collapsed discs and severe nerve damage. So anyway, it was still deteriorating. This is the weirdest thing. And I started reading up on it, and I realised it could be the spironolactone I was on, because it did have possible side effects of potassium and magnesium deficiencies in the blood. Well, the thing is, magnesium carries calcium, and so you can end up having massive bone thinning, brittle bones, everything. And so this wasn't the medical profession, but I asked a friend of mine to go and get some magnesium supplements, potassium, and some B12, because I also saw on a blood test that I was also slightly anemic. So I started myself on a natural crash course, so to speak. It was amazing, but my palpitations in about 36 hours, it's like my muscle spasms, because everything was in spasm all of the time. And it's like my muscle spasms started slowing up, and my heart rate started I couldn't feel my heart anymore. It's just pumping normally.
Good.
And but I was left in a position where I didn't have any pain management, because my doctors were refusing to deal with me. And so this is how I was left. And eventually they found me another doctor, this Dr. Christofoli. She was quite nice. I only saw her the once. But I went in and discussed, because my main concern is because everyone was ignoring my trans side, and I knew what had gone on and everything, and that was a priority to me. And then obviously the next thing was cardiac, and the spine. Well, I put it in sort of like a chronological order of importance, so to speak. And so she gave me some hormones, and then told me my cardiac issues would have to wait until she got back off holiday, which was over a month later. So I was deteriorating again, and but she was, what we didn't realise, she was giving me the same drugs that were causing all the problems anyway. And I kept on trying to ring her, but I never got a call back from her. And sadly, subsequently thereafter, I had a heart attack.
Oh, no.
And again, it wasn't treated. So if you imagine, I have never had medical treatment for the injuries on my right leg. I've never been medically treated for the spinal injuries, the collapsed discs, severe nerve injuries, the 2 pulmonary embolisms, and the internal bleeds I've had. And in fact, even today, I walk around as a ticking time bomb in some ways, because with the leg injury, I could develop another pulmonary embolism. So now I administer my own anticoagulants, which I take just before I go to bed, because the highest risk time is when your body's not in motion. If you're walking and, your day-to-day activities, the risk of that is relatively low. It's when your body slows down and your blood starts to pool. That's when you start getting problems. So I take anticoagulants for an hour or so before I go to bed. But it gets worse from there. So I get discharged from literally every doctor. The NHS then turn around and say, sorry, but you've exhausted we haven't got any more doctors for you. So you're having a laugh, aren't you? There's more than 4 or 5 doctors in the fucking world. Oh no, no one that treat transgendered people. Well, it's left me in a position over the past couple of years. I knew it's all victimization. It was these people that threatened me because I did pursue my rights, and I still pursue my rights. I stand up for the truth. I have faith and belief in the truth.
I don't understand
most of the time
how that's illogical. They don't treat transgendered people. I mean, you're still the same as any other human. Your spine works the same. Your heart works the same. I don't understand how that's illogical.
Well, nor do I. There's a lot of issues, and I've actually found, because I have this a lot with clinicians, a lot of clinicians aren't happy to treat you. And, you can see the irony of it. There's a woman sitting in front of the doctor with a penis, and you can see the funny side of it, can't you, in some ways? I came up with this, I discovered a new phobia. And I call it's Latin, but I call it brachyphallosophobia. And translated into English, it's called giant trouser snake syndrome. And it's predominantly found in male clinicians treating a male to female transsexual. I'm trying to register it as a bona fide phobia at the moment. I just want to take the piss out of these clinicians. But it's not fair on me. But this January, I even had troubles because I was very ill. How can I put it? I had some stomach problems for ages, and it was getting worse. And then I had some friends round. I had a friend round for New Year's Eve, and we went up London. And New Year's Day, she stayed with me, had dinner, and then we walked down to the station together so I could say goodbye. On the way down, I kept on getting so hot, and I was just running out of energy. So I got the bus back, and I got home, and I took the clothes off, went to bed. But I didn't wake up until the 4th of January. And I woke up to a friend of mine, Patrick, banging on the front door and ringing the doorbell. We'd arranged to meet on the 4th anyway, so I got up, opened the door, and his face, it was shock, horror, and saying, "Are you okay?" And saying, "I'm not too sure." He said, "Just go and have a look at yourself in the mirror." And I looked at myself, and I didn't recognise myself at all, and I realised I was very seriously ill. And we had a meeting. The reason why I was coming around is because I had the local CCG coming around to discuss the situations. And I wanted a witness, you see. So that's why he'd come round. And the CCGs, which is the clinical commissioning groups, they knew I was seriously ill. And yet they couldn't be bothered with it. They couldn't be bothered at all. And I've just sent you a link across. Is there any chance of playing this whilst we're talking?
If you give me a second, I can maybe do it. I'm looking for it right now.
Not quite yet, but whilst I finish off,
okay.
Because this is where you can start saying it's so serious. Well, anyway, I went to a hospital, and I wasn't well at all, and they palmed me off with some aspirins and told me to go home and sleep it off. And it just kept on getting worse. So I called for an ambulance, and the paramedics came, and they wanted to take me to the hospital that Tim Higginson, the chief exec, who was threatening me, And I say, no, I want to go to St Thomas's Hospital. I don't want to go to this one because I've been so badly abused in there. But they refused, and then he got abusive, threw me a packet of aspirins and said, go to sleep and perhaps you'll be better in the morning type thing. But I was getting progressively worse pretty quickly. So eventually I had to get a taxi across London and to St Thomas's. And by that time, they couldn't keep my temperature below 39, and I was getting really ill. But in the end, I had about 5 or 6 consultants, and they were really good. They literally they've got chairs, and they're all sitting there, and they're saying, "You've got us so confused, Tracy." And I said, "Well, why?" And they said, "Well, we've got a suspicion what it is, but you're not responding to pain like you should do. And so it's confusing us." Anyway, it took them 2.5 days. And eventually they had to put me in a CAT scan machine with a barium meal and check my stomach. And it turned out I had a severe acute appendicitis. And so anyway, I went up, had the operation. And it's the first ever operation I'd had. And it was crazy because you're lying in an anaesthetic room and it's like you're teleported into another room, you see. So there I am awake, and I need the toilet. So I'm up out of bed and I'm looking for the toilets, and the nurses are running after me saying, "Tracy, you must get back to bed. You've just had an operation. We've just woken you up." And I'm saying, "I just need the loos. I'll be back in a minute." And they're saying, "Tracy, there's no patient toilets up here. No one ever gets out of bed." And the rest of it, well, anyway, I got down on the ward, and I was drinking loads of coffee. It's funny, I had this craving for coffee, and hundreds of cups of coffee, and then chucked them all up, and then I felt really good. So I was getting so bored so quickly, I put my clothes on and went for a crafty cigarette out in the hospital grounds. And even then, they were saying, "You can't go outside, you just had an operation." I'm saying, "Look, I'll be fine, I'll be back soon." So that's what I did. And it was amazing, but I was in the hospital grounds having this cigarette, and this police officer comes out of nowhere and tries escorting me off the hospital grounds, and I've got these cannulas hanging out of my hands. I've got wristbands on. I still look bloody ill. And this officer is trying to throw me off of the hospital grounds, and I'm saying, "Well, you've got no jurisdiction here. Why didn't you just fuck off and leave me alone?" And this little WBC had it in for me. It was absolutely phenomenal. So I went over and saw one of the bosses, and I said, "Look, I've just come out for an operation, and now you're harassing me already." And but yeah, the following morning, and this is what I was going to get at, my point was that the surgeons came to see me, and they said, "Look, we're really concerned about you." And I said, "Well, why?" And they said, "Well, the amount of they said you had lesions in your stomach that we had to cut through to get to your appendix, and then your appendix was totally adhered to everything else, so we had to cut that free as well." And they're showing me pictures, and they're saying, "Look, your appendix was totally black." That we had so much trouble getting this out without losing any of it. It was a very complicated operation. And they said, "But what we're worried about is you." And they said, "How the hell did you walk into hospital to start off with? Because someone in your condition should have been on a stretcher, heads off, doubled up in agony." And then he says, "We understand that you got out of bed in recovery looking for the toilets. And 3 hours later, went out for a walk." And he said, "You haven't got any pain management. So how do you do this?" And I said, "Well, I suppose the easiest answer to give you is that the pain I suffer from my injuries makes the pain of the appendicitis and the operation inconsequential. I didn't have any pain management at all for my operation." And so that's how it's been ever since.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so I have to fight constantly 24/7. I have a lot of injuries now, and for some odd reason, I suppose in a way, it's made me recognise how people can be so severely victimised. Not just trans people, but when people do get victimised, they, sometimes those people die. I should have died 4 times now. For me, it continues. For me, I have to fight the police constantly, and I have to fight the NHS. So at present, I forced them into going out to tender for a doctor, a private doctor. And then when I asked for the tender documents under subject access, they've actually put me down as a violent patient with a split personality, this, that, and everything else. And they say that I haven't grasped the female gender. Well, you've just seen my pictures. So that recording I thought was really good, because this is what I used to get from doctors. Have you got it on the computer ready to play?
No, it won't play. It came up as a torrent, and I can't get it to play through the Spreaker app.
Oh, don't worry then. It was the recording. It'd be in part 2 anyway. But the recording is when I went in to see a doctor, and he wanted a urine sample. So he picked up a dirty vending cup, vending machine cup, one of those plastic ones, and handed it to me in the waiting room in front of all the patients and said, "Can you urinate in this for me then, please?"
That's not even sterilized.
And he said, "Yes." What, in the front of all the patients as well?
Oh, yeah, I see. I didn't
even realize that. He had coffee stains in the cup, and he wanted me to piss in front of everyone.
Oh, I thought he handed it to you to go to the restroom. Oh, he wanted you to stay. What the hell is wrong with this guy?
He wanted me to piss in front of everyone.
Oh my God!
And this is what I used to get from a lot of doctors. I used to get humiliation like that all of the time. And so yeah, it can get very severe. And these people, a lot of them, don't give a shit if you die or not. And that's the most amazing thing. They couldn't care a monkeys if you lived or died.
Yeah, I know here in the U.S., the if you don't have insurance or money, you might as well just die. They don't care. But I've always known that you guys in the UK have a much better healthcare system. It just seems like it's terribly discriminatory against you.
I never used to have any problems before I started transition. And, a lot of people probably look at me saying, well, it's your choice. And, well, it wasn't a choice. This is who I am. It's just that I was always brought up as someone else. And this is the real me. This is who I am.
So your choice was to become who you actually are, or stay miserable the rest of your life.
Yeah. And it's something that affected me so badly that I had to do something about it. I love my daughter, but I won't see her until she's finished her education, because I don't want her to be discriminated against in any form. And she's such a beautiful girl inside and out that, I'd rather her undamaged. Yes, there's laws for this, that, and everything else, but that's for after the fact, not before. And I want her to have the best in the world, not to grow up with clouds over her head or anything. So we staged my leaving. The last time I saw her was in 2010, and I took her up to the Arctic Circle to see Santa Claus. And that to me was, my God, that was a mixed bag, because it was the most magical, amazing time ever that we'd ever had together as a family. And it was just so cool, indulging in your child's fantasies like that is awesome. But also knowing that when you get off the plane, you're not going to see your daughter again is quite a mixed bag of emotions.
Yeah, knowing that long goodbye was going to be there afterwards had to put a damper on it.
Well, she didn't know, and this is the thing.
I'm saying knowing that had to put a damper on it.
Yeah. It's just that when we got home and she went to bed, that's when I was going to go. And so, yeah, it's something that, we don't do. It's not a choice. Yes, we all have choices, but it got to a point where it's no longer a choice. I couldn't do this anymore, to the point where I was going to say goodbye to my daughter. We'd never really been separated, and now I'm not going to see, I was leaving her, and I knew that, she won't want for anything, but yeah, it's a very hard time.
That's sad and horrible. I mean, it's all due to society's ignorance and stupidity and
Well, I
bigotry.
wouldn't say that. I'd say for her, you see, school children, there's really no malice in what they do. They go to school to learn malice, I suppose, in a way. But you see, she would have embraced things, no problem. But she would have gone to school and probably said, I've got two mummies now or something, or word would get around, and all of a sudden people would start talking. And I didn't want any of that to come back on her. I wanted her untouched. I wanted to have her to have her childhood and to be able to go through education without any form of hindrance because of what I had to do for myself.
Well, that's why I said it was society, because those kids get that from somewhere else, because they're, the natural reaction is be like, you have two mommies, why, and question it, maybe not mock it or laugh at it. There's a big difference.
Yeah, and then without realizing, you can do a lot of damage to people, and the kids would be teasing, not knowing what damage they were doing. So this is why I thought for the best that I would go. So and now it's amazing the amount of people that it's just public services, and I put it down to a lot of dysphoria. When they put on their uniforms and everything, they become slightly different people, authoritarian. They look down on you, and yet I'm a builder, I'm a makeup artist, I'm what's classed as an advocate in law. I'm quite specialist in equality law now. I sail. I've sailed over 70,000 miles to sea. I've got 5 patents against my name. So on and so forth. And yet, I'll give you an example. This nurse said to me, she was just about to take blood, and she says to me, "So what do you do?" And I said, I knew what she's going on about, but I said, "What do you mean, what do I do?" And she said, "Well, what do you do to survive?" And I said, "In what way?" "I breathe." And she said, "No, what do you do for a living?" And she said, "Do you sing?" And I laughed and I said, "I'm sorry, I can't sing to save my life." And she looked really confused. So she said, "Do you act then?" And I laughed. And I said, "No, I can't act either. Why?" And she said again, "So how do you survive? How do you earn money to survive if you can't sing and you can't act?" I was waiting for this also. I said, "Look, I'm a fucking builder, and I'm a specialist claims for this, that, and everything else." She said, "Oh," looking really bemused. So I said to her, "Can I ask you a question?" And she said, "Yes, what's that?" I said, "What do you do for a living?" And she said, "If you're going to insult me again, I'm not going to treat you." Can you see my point?
Yeah.
Yeah. She'd sat there considering, she was looking down at me. Obviously I'm a trans woman, so I must be a drag act, or I must be a drag singer. There's no way that a trans woman can be a builder.
Box. Yeah.
So this is where it all comes from. And I think in a way, this is why I say that the trans community are probably to blame for a lot of this, because you get all of these people going in doing awareness talks, this, that, and everything else. Well, those people that go in and do all these awareness talks are those that haven't got a fucking life in the first place, and that want to be known as a lady. So they give this impression of this little Britain out in awareness talks, and then someone like me, a professional, comes in that's actually after genuine help, and we get prejudiced. In many ways, I think the trans community have probably caused a lot of rods for my back in so many ways. But on the other hand, these people should be professional enough to actually look at everybody as an individual and as a human being.
Exactly. But I think Tracy, that's what I said before, and the more you talk, the more I believe it. The law enforcement and medical, they have records. They have records on you, and they know more about you than the average person on the street. And I think that the average person on the street just says, "Oh, there's a woman," but they know, they have more information about you, and if they're prejudiced in a way or bigoted or skewed in one direction, it's going to probably affect them more. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be that way, especially with medical.
If I go out for a drink with a friend, sometimes you want to go out and have a drink, sit down and talk. And sometimes I get really pissed off because I have guy after guy after guy coming up asking if I want a drink. And I'm trying to talk to my friend. And it's very flattering in so many ways. Because, you know, I don't go to any gay districts or anything else. I just go out in the normal world. And so to get all these guys stopping and, you know, trying to chat you up and having a drink. And, yeah, in real life, it's odd, isn't it, how your voice always sounds deeper on a telephone or on a microphone. My voice is a little bit lighter. And, you know, if I don't tell people, most people really don't realise. They just think that he is speaking to a deep-voiced woman.
Yeah.
So, it's really strange how you come out of society into those very services. And what I didn't realise, I always thought when I transitioned that I would have trouble with society and I would be supported by my public services, being the police and NHS and social network. Well, it turns out that they are the problem, which is so bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah. It's sad. And police, like I said, I understand they're dicks, but medical people, medical professionals, doctors, nurses, they really should be there just to help people, regardless of who those people are.
Well, you're so right, but what I don't understand, sometimes I really don't understand. You see, the GMC have even come out, the General Medical Council in the UK have even brought this up, that doctors must be able to differentiate between distress and aggression. Well, for the General Medical Council to come up with this in their guidelines for doctors highlights that there is an issue at the moment with zero tolerance in so many ways. So if you've got someone very distressed that's been victimized, and yes, I've been very distressed because I've been left in so many different predicaments. In fact, one time I went into a hospital, I dislocated my left leg. This is the only accident I've had. And this clinician, he called me and I stood up and he looked at me with disgust and he sort of like grunted and motioned to follow him. Well, I dislocated my leg. It popped back in. I was having it checked out. But we were walking, I was hopping and he was walking down this corridor and I said, "Excuse me, I think you have an issue with me." And he was sort of like shrugging and shaking his head. And I said, "Look, I just don't think you like trans people." And he laughed and I said, "Look, do us a favour. Can you go and get someone else? Because I don't want you touching me." And so he turned around and said, "Fine, okay." And so he walked off. Guess who he came back with?
Who?
2 security guards.
Oh, wow.
And they removed me from the hospital without medical treatment.
Wow. That's horrible.
Yeah. So there's been loads of those. And what I'm doing, because over the years I've recorded everything, so now I'm going to start releasing all of these recordings.
You just released part 2. Yeah. You just released episode 2. And these go into detail, and they have the audio built in, you know, plays with them as well. And we'll air them here as soon as you give them to us. Each episode.
Well, I decided to, just like in that recording, I decided to take the human element out. Because, you see, when you listen to these things, they're distressing. Even today, my heart was pounding listening to some of these recordings because it's taking me back. And it's downright distressing. In fact, that recording that you played is quite horrific. And that's not even the tip of the iceberg. You consider I've been at death's door 4 times and been left internally, so when you start adding it up, it's absolutely sick. But I decided to take the human element out, take my voice out of things. And so I used my bot voices. And I must admit, listening through, especially with that funny beat behind it, it sounds more like a heartbeat. It actually got my heartbeat racing when I was coming up to these recordings with the police. Well, if you consider one of those telephone calls into the police when I was saying, look, I'm going to die. I was going to die.
Yeah.
And they were telling me to go away.
Yeah, I've heard some of the other...
They're telling me to... Sorry?
I was going to say, I heard some of the other recordings you were sending in the DM the other night. It's just ridiculous. I mean, people will hear them as you start releasing them.
Well, you see, what happened was my boat was stolen by a woman and a boyfriend. And it turned out that she was sister of an MP. It turned out to be my MP that she was the sister to. And when my MP found out what was going on, he retracted all of his help. And I do understand that the police were influenced regarding the theft of my yacht. I had actually got recordings saying that Chris Bentley was too ill to come in for interview. And I said, well, what's wrong with him? And they said he's badly stressed out at the moment. And I said, well, I've just fucking died. I said, he's stolen something. He's a criminal. You should get him in. Oh, no, he's too ill to come. No, he's too ill. He's not coming in. We're going to interview Sharon Brockenshire instead. Well, she had nothing to do with the crime. Well, she did, but it was Chris Bentley that actually committed the offences. So you see, all of a sudden we had all of this from above. And of course, I'm very ill. I'm a trans woman. So who are they going to believe? And this is when I started being told to stop causing trouble for nice people, because I was actually making criminal allegation against an MP's sister. He was Minister of Immigration at the time. His name's James Brockenshire. So, and now we have trouble with another MP, which is my MP at the moment, called Matthew Pennycock. And he's trying to wriggle out and find any excuse to help me whatsoever. So there's a few people right now that are starting to, because they've blocked me from all media, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, everything. They've blocked me from emails, the whole lot. So there's a few anons now helping me. So when I produce my media, they keep on making sure it's posted. So there's no getting away from it.
Yeah,
everything is going to come out.
That's how I got it.
Yeah. Well, everything's coming out. Everything's being posted and targeted at those people that committed offences and actually left me to die. And I'm just about to start a criminal. I'm in talks with the court at the moment because I'm going to do my own private criminal prosecutions against the Detective Chief Inspector who refused to safeguard, which is also unlawful under the Disability Act. But I'm also going to criminally prosecute my first GP, who wrote me that letter. So, yes, I never knew law until I had my first pulmonary embolism. Then I started reading up on it at no end. So I've studied for the past 4 years. And so, yes, I'm quite capable now of prosecuting people. So I'm going into the criminal courts and also into the high courts. But I still have to fight for my medical treatment. Isn't that bizarre?
It's ridiculous. Your whole story just is so sad and so depressing. I can't even imagine you're the actual person. Me, just hearing it, it's like horrific.
Well,
we gotta wrap this up soon. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say this again. What I've been through, I could never change who I am. I could never go back. My life is too good. That's a bizarre statement to make, isn't it? My life is too good. So can you imagine what my life was before transition, with the amount of depression and everything I had, that I can withstand all of this pain because my life is so good now?
Yeah, and if you could just get rid of the abuse and what they're doing, your life could be great. I think that's what we
Perfect.
want. Yeah.
Mm.
But like I said, we got to wrap this up soon. So I wanted to ask you a couple more questions before we're all the way out. The first one is like we just talked about. Anons can spread this throughout if they have radio shows or YouTube channels or even through Twitter, Facebook. Anons can get your message out. But what else can people do? I mean, people in the UK, what can they do to help you? And I'm sure there's less we here in the US could do to help you. But what can people do?
I really ask for no. In lots of ways, it'd be nice to say I would love some help and support. If you want to go onto YouTube, if you type in Anonymous UK warning Metropolitan Police LGBT,
Yeah, I'm
you'll
posting
see one of my videos up.
I'm posting that along with broadcast.
But you see, what I'm doing is people. I don't want to cause any problems that come back on me. So I try and keep it as low key as possible, especially in this climate. So. And the other thing is I don't want any swearing or anything because, yes, I could ask everyone to contact these people and say this is not right. But at the same time, there'd be a couple of people that would ruin it for the rest of us. And in a way, I'm trying to perhaps change our image very slightly into a more professional image. So I publish what counts and I target and I send it. And then I make sure and ensure it keeps on going onto those sites. And every time someone gets blocked, we find someone else to send it. So whatever happens, as long as one has been posted onto that particular key site, then, and it's kept being posted, it will be read by everyone. So I think the best, if I was going to ask for any help, I'd say, please come and listen to the shows and please, if you want to help me, I think it's not helping me, it's helping others. And if you could grab my Operation Stop Suicide show, but also the Matt DeHart show for free anons, and actually share it around with everyone. Please just give it to everyone on every one of your email contacts. And if they say, are you anonymous? Say yes and be proud. Because, we shouldn't hide. We should be able to tell others who we are. Because then we're going to get more support. And the more people know about what's going on, the more good we can do in so many ways. So the help wouldn't be for me, it'd be for everyone else, I'm afraid. But I'll keep you updated of what's going on, and if there is something that comes up, then I'll certainly let you know. But I'll also keep you updated with all the court cases coming up and everything as well, because it's going to be interesting. But if you're passing and if you want to say hello, keep my spirits up. You can always come and say hi to me on my Twitter page, which is under AnonyTrace.
AnonyTrace, yeah. So definitely, I'm going to ask all anons that can to go ahead and keep spreading your story and trying to make sure that the awareness is out there and people know what's going on with you.
Let's make sure that we can get, because you see, I like concentrating on, you see, it's like Matt DeHart, he was tortured. They took him out of circulation before even his mum and dad knew. And they pumped him full of so many different truth serums and stuff, burning his arms, doing this, doing that. Well, the abuse is, you can't pinpoint just one abuse. Yes, there's a lot of transphobia. A lot of it's brought on a person from the way they act, intentionally or unintentionally. But at the same time, yes, there's a huge amount of discrimination. So, it's something that you could talk for weeks about. But I feel in a way that we should be human to each other. It doesn't matter if that woman's got a penis or if that man's got a vagina, does it really? What are you talking to? Are you talking to the genitals or are you talking to the person?
Yeah.
So it's relatively irrelevant. And if you're going to help me or help the transgender community, if you see someone in trouble, go and help them. Or if you see someone looking nervous, go across and compliment them. Make them feel good. That's how you can help me. Because then perhaps our community will see that society isn't a savage place to live. That's my community, not me. I love society. But I'm just thinking of all those other trans that do get abused by society. So that's something you can do for me. Next time you see a trans person, go across and say hello to them. But don't ask them if they've still got a penis. That's one of the biggest insults going. If you still got your dick.
People ask that?
Excuse, I say to them, look, if you go up to the bus stop and you see some woman you like, do you go up and say, excuse me, have you got a fucking dick or a vagina? Oh, come on, you get to know the person first, don't you? And if you fancy them, does it matter what's down below?
That just seems like an extremely inappropriate question to ask somebody you don't know.
This is what I'm saying, because it's happened so many times. And if
Wow.
you, in the second one, did you notice I said, ask me any questions as long as it's not about my penis? Because I've still got my penis. In that recording you played, it says, I put down, I don't mind answering any questions as long as it's not about my penis. Why do you think I put that in there?
I didn't know until now.
The first thing a lot of these people say is, have you had the operation? It's like going up to some woman and say, excuse me, but have you washed your twat? Excuse me, if you've got a flange. It's you don't go up to the bus stop and start sniffing everyone's fucking crotch, do you? And you don't go up to the bus stop and say, excuse me, but could I just see camel's toe for a second just to make sure you're a bird?
Wow.
None of that counts.
That kind of brings me into the next question I was going to ask you. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're trying to wrap this up. The next question I was going to ask was specifically, besides saying hello and trying to support, what can we as people in a society do to try to make it better for trans people in general, with trans people?
Drown all politicians. Stick their head in a bucket of water and hold it there until they can't move any longer.
But spreading awareness, I guess, and trying to talk to trans people on social media, meeting people.
It's every small action creates such a change in life. And this is what I'm saying. If you see someone alone that's trans, if you've never spoken to a trans person, it's very easy, Do you know how to speak to a trans person?
Like you speak to any other person?
Exactly. So, you see, sometimes it's when I've gone shopping in the supermarkets, you can spot the trans woman. And because she's the one that's got the sunglasses on, hair wrapped around her face, crabbing sideways down the side of the aisles, looking at the aisles about 6 inches away from them, looking inconspicuous. Well, they're very nervous when they're new. And then you'll get some people that don't pass, and you'll get those people that are camp, and you're thinking, oh my God. But you see, the more society sees people integrating with these people, the more they'll become accepted.
Yeah.
And so, funny enough, if lots of people see you talking, just not even making an effort, but standing there chatting to a trans woman, everyone will think, well, she's not that bad then, is she? So just one little act of kindness can change so many minds, so many attitudes. So
That's true.
do it for the 30 friends I've lost in the past 6 years.
Definitely.
And save a life.
I'm going to try to do more research and be more understanding and do that as well.
Transgendered women, I've got nothing against them, and I think every household should have one. Sorry.
We got to go. I want to thank you, Tracy, for being on the show today. I'm so excited to be airing your shows on People's Radio now. I
No,
think
you're
that's
welcome.
I think that's going to be an awesome. I know it's an awesome addition to our channel, and we're going to take it out with your mix, the long one. You wanna tell people what that is, because I didn't get a name for it.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's been good fun, and we've talked for a very long time. And yeah, it's been an interesting evening. But I haven't got a name for this. It just took me forever to actually produce. And it was the first. It blew my computer up, actually.
Wow.
I had my Vio i7, and I burnt my left leg, and it didn't give me any warning. It just, everything went dead. I just completely overheated the computer. But yeah, it's just one of my first attempts of mixing.
Okay.
And so it never got a name, but I use it on my intros a lot. That's why you'll see there's probably intro up to about number 3 or 4 for different shows. So
Okay.
once I've mastered it for a show, I leave it like that and pop it up on my cloud just in case anyone wants to take it.
All right. So, long ass intro mix by AnonyTrace. Thanks so much for coming on today. We're going to take the people out, and thank you guys for listening to the show. Share it, spread it. Please get involved with all the people we talk to, and AnonyTrace as well, and give her a follow at AnonyTrace on Twitter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We are Legion. We never forgive. We never forget. We are anonymous. Please welcome DJ AnonyTrace, probably the most controversial DJ to ever hit the internet. affect us. The world has more imagination than in our dreams. As Legion, we are the world. anonymous. My friends, my brothers, my sisters, my family, come, stand with me. As we are anonymous, our rights, our freedoms, mean more than the existence we suffer now. Spread the word. Awaken the masses. We can no longer be repressed. Our ideas, our goals, our beliefs, our dreams, our passions, our determination to relieve the inhuman suffering in such a precious life that our 3.5 billion poorest suffer. To bring humanity within our law and order, to respect our basic human rights. Is this too much to demand from our governments? I ask my brothers, my sisters, my family, as we are Legion. And as Legion we must stand. I ask my brothers and sisters, my family, please, do not forget why we are here. Please make use of your time here. Please, join an operation. Become an active member, as Legion, our collective intelligence, our collective determination for freedom, a power, second to only Mother Nature herself. Reach out, ask your brother, please. I have met so many anonymous members on Twitter, Facebook, and other social media sites, who do not know of our existence. Spread the word. Awaken the masses, help our brothers and sisters become part of our Legion. By helping them in from the dark, stranded on other sites, and not knowing the way home to us. Please invite your brothers, sisters, family. Show them the way. Give them the links to our new blood site, assist them through the short process. A process that can only form Legion. We are anonymous. Together we stand. Together we will pursue our light, in spite of the others. Together, we will bring change, that is beyond the capabilities of our corporate imagination. Together, if we use the 6 degrees of separation responsibly, we will achieve our goals. A world where no one hungers. A world of equal rights. A world of opportunity, where we can live how we need, without worry, without fear, without the atrocities our corporate bodies bestow upon us. We are Legion. We are anonymous. Together we stand. Divided by none. We never forget. We never forgive. Expect us.